The slap sounded like a wooden spoon cracking against a pot. Sharp, flat, and louder than anything in that kitchen had ever been. I remember the exact second her hand met my cheek, because the sting came a heartbeat after the sound, and then the heat, and then the taste of blood where my tooth cut the inside of my lip. I just stood there, one hand still holding the dish towel, the other frozen halfway to the stove where the okra was starting to smoke. She was breathing hard through her nose, eyes wide, almost wild. "Give me the house keys, Mama Joy," she said, voice shaking with something that sounded like victory. "It's mine now. He signed it over, all legal. You're done here." I'm 68 years old. My name is Joyce, but everybody calls me Mama Joy because I answer to it with a smile even when I don't feel like smiling. And in that moment, with my cheek on fire and my daughter-in-law's finger pointing at my chest like I was a stranger, I didn't feel like smiling at all. Let me take you back a little, because you need to understand how we got to that evening in my own kitchen, with the smell of burnt okra and the taste of my own blood. 3 years ago, my husband passed, quietly in his sleep, the way he always said he wanted to go. The house was paid off, the funeral was small, and the nights were suddenly too big. My only child, Michael, was 32 then, newly married to Crystal. They were living in a tiny apartment across town, struggling with rent, talking about starting a family but never quite getting there. One Sunday after church, I sat them down at this same kitchen table and said, "Come home. There's room. 3 bedrooms upstairs still have your old posters on the wall, Michael. Bring your wife. Save your money. Start your life proper." I meant it with my whole heart. I cooked breakfast every morning, grits, eggs the way Michael likes them runny, turkey bacon for Crystal because she said pork made her breakout. I did their laundry, pressed Michael's work shirts, hung Crystal's dresses so the wrinkles fell out. When she said she was tired of her job, I told her quit, rest, I'd cover groceries. When they argued, because young couples do, I closed my bedroom door and turned the TV up just enough so they wouldn't feel watched. People said I was spoiling them. My sister Marlene told me straight, "Joyce, you're raising a man-child and his entitled wife." I laughed it off. "They're family," I said. "Family doesn't keep score." I believed that. I still do, mostly. But there were little things, small enough that I folded them away like receipts I didn't want to look at. Crystal started calling me Mama Joy in this sweet, syrupy voice in front of company. But when it was just us, she'd say Joyce, flat, like I was the help. Michael stopped meeting my eyes when he asked for an extra $100 here, $200 there. The mail started going missing from the table. I'd find bills opened and retaped, or sometimes not find them at all. I told myself I was being petty. Old people get suspicious, that's all. I'd lost my husband. Of course, I was clinging too tight. Then came the weekend I went to Macon to help Marlene after her knee replacement. Just 2 nights. I left on a Friday morning with a pot of chicken soup for them in the fridge and a note that said, "Love you both. See you Sunday evening. Mama." I got back early, around 4 o'clock, because Marlene's daughter flew in and I didn't want to crowd them. The house smelled like lemon cleaner. Crystal must have cleaned, I thought, how nice. I called out, "I'm home," the way I always do. No answer. Michael's truck was gone. Crystal's little white car sat in the driveway. I carried my small suitcase upstairs, changed into house shoes, and came down to start supper. That's when I heard the front door slam and heels clicking fast across the wood floor. She came into the kitchen like a storm. And that's when the slap happened. I tasted blood, I saw stars, and I heard those words again in my head, clear as a bell. "Give me the house keys. It's mine now." My ears were ringing, but my hands, Lord, my hands were steady. I set the dish towel down slow, folded it once, twice, like I was at somebody else's house and didn't want to leave a mess. "Crystal," I said, soft as I could, "what did you just do?" She laughed, short and ugly. "What I had to. Michael signed the deed over Friday afternoon. Quit claim, notary and everything. You were gone, perfect timing. So pack your little old lady things and go stay with your sister. This is our house now." I touched my cheek. It felt hot and tight, like it already belonged to someone else. And that's when something quiet shifted inside me, something I didn't even know was there. I looked at her, really looked, and said, "We'll see about that, baby girl." I didn't sleep that night. The house was quiet the way only a house full of secrets can be. Too quiet. Michael never came home. Crystal locked herself in the master bedroom, my bedroom, the one my husband and I picked out the bed frame for 35 years ago. I sat in the dark living room in my daddy's old recliner, cheek still throbbing, ice pack going warm against my skin. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her hand coming at me again. Every time I opened them, I saw the family pictures on the mantle. Michael's first birthday, his graduation, our last Christmas with his daddy. All of us smiling like nothing could ever break. I must have dozed off sometime after 3, because the next thing I knew the sun was coming through the curtains, and Crystal was standing over me with a suitcase in her hand and a smirk on her mouth. "Morning, Joyce," she said, bright as you please. "I called a locksmith. He'll be here at 9 to change all the locks, just so there's no confusion." I sat up slow. My neck was stiff, my face felt twice its size. "And my son?" I asked. My voice came out rough, like I'd swallowed gravel. "He's at the apartment we just rented. Grown folks need their own space, you know." She set the suitcase down, opened it, and started pulling out my folded nightgowns, my church hats, my Bible with the cracked leather cover. She was packing me like I was an overnight guest who'd overstayed. I watched her for a minute. Then I stood up, walked past her to the kitchen, and poured myself a cup of yesterday's coffee. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. "Crystal," I said, leaning against the counter, "do you really think Michael signed my house over to you without saying a word to me?" She rolled her eyes. "He did more than sign. He begged me to take it, said you'd never leave otherwise, said you were smothering him." She zipped the suitcase. His words, not mine. I took a slow sip of the cold coffee. It tasted bitter, but not as bitter as what was sitting in my chest. I waited until she left with the locksmith, heard the drill whining at the front door like a dentist's tool, and then I did what any 68-year-old woman with a swollen face and a broken heart does. I called Miss Lorraine. Miss Lorraine has been my best friend since we were 9 years old, and she beat up Tommy Jenkins for pulling my plates. She's a paralegal down at the courthouse, retired now, but still knows everybody who matters. "Lorraine," I said when she answered, "I need a favor, a big one." 30 minutes later, I was sitting in her kitchen while she made me hold a bag of frozen peas on my cheek and pulled up the county property records on her laptop. And there it was. Quitclaim deed, recorded Friday at 2:17 p.m. Michael's signature, Crystal's signature, notary stamp. But something was off. I saw it before Lorraine did. The legal description of the property was wrong. They used the parcel number from the empty lot next door, the one the city owns. Not my house. My house still showed me Joyce Marie Williams as sole owner. The deed they filed was worthless. A mistake, maybe, or maybe somebody got nervous and typed too fast. Lorraine looked at me over her glasses. "Joyce, baby, they tried to steal your house with a fake deed. That's fraud." I felt the air leave my lungs, not from fear this time, but from something colder. I asked Lorraine to print everything. Then I drove myself to the police station, cheek still purple, and filed a report for assault. The young officer kept glancing at my face like he couldn't believe a daughter-in-law would do that to an old lady. I just handed him the papers and said, "I want this on record." After that, I went to the bank. I still had the original deed in the safety deposit box, plus the title insurance policy my husband insisted on 30 years ago. I made copies of everything. Then I called Mr. Clarence Hayes, the lawyer who handled Daddy's estate. He's 80 if he's a day, but sharp as a switch. "Miss Joyce," he said when I told him, voice slow and steady, "you come see me tomorrow morning, and bring every piece of paper you got. We're gonna fix this." I drove home, my home, just as the sun was going down. The locksmith had changed the locks, all right. I stood on my own porch with my key in my hand, and it wouldn't turn. So I sat down on the top step, right there between the pots of geraniums I planted last spring, and I waited. Michael's truck pulled up at 8, 10:42 p.m. He saw me sitting there and froze halfway out the driver's door. "Mama," he said, like he wasn't sure it was me. I didn't stand up. I just looked at him and said, calm as I could, "Come sit down, son. We need to talk about why your wife thinks it's all right to put hands on me in my own house." He looked like a little boy who just got caught stealing cookies. And for the first time in years, I wasn't sure I wanted to hand him the jar. "Would you like me to continue to part 3? Michael walked up the steps slow, like the wood might bite him. He had on the same gray hoodie he wore in high school, the one I washed 1,000 times. It hung loose on him now. He'd lost weight. His eyes were red, either from crying or from not sleeping. I couldn't tell which. He sat 2 feet away from me, elbows on his knees, staring at the welcome mat like it might save him. "Mama," he started, voice cracking, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know she was gonna hit you. I swear on everything." I let the silence sit there. Crickets were loud that night. A dog barked down the street. I waited until he looked at me. "Michael," I said, soft but clear, "I raised you in the church. I taught you to honor your father and your mother. Did you forget that part when you signed my house away?" He dropped his head into his hands. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. She said we needed space. She said you'd never leave if we asked nice. She said a quit claim was the easiest way and you'd be happy living with Aunt Marlene. She said." "She said a lot of things," I cut in. "And you believed the one that let you stop being my son for 5 minutes." He flinched like I'd slapped him. "Good." I reached into my purse and pulled out the stack of papers Lorraine printed. I laid them on the step between us. "That deed you signed, it's for the empty lot next door. The one with the broken swing set. You gave your wife a piece of dirt, Michael. My house is still mine. Legally, morally, every way that matters." He stared at the papers like they were written in another language. "I didn't know," he whispered. "She handled everything. She drove me to the notary. She told me what to sign." I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Stand up," I said. He did. I stood too. My knees popped, but I stood straight. "You are 35 years old," I told him. "You are somebody's husband and, Lord willing one day, somebody's daddy. You do not let a woman lead you into stealing from your own mother. You do not stand by while she puts her hands on the woman who carried you for 9 months and wiped your behind for 3 years after that. You hear me?" Tears rolled down his face. "Yes, ma'am." "Now you go inside and you get that child out of my house. And you tell her the police have a report with her name on it, and Mr. Clarence Hayes has an appointment with a judge next week. And if she ever lays a hand on me again, I will press charges faster than she can blink." He nodded so hard, I thought his neck would break. I stepped aside so he could open the door with his new key. I didn't follow him in. I just stood on my porch and listened. I heard Crystal's voice first, high and sharp. "What do you mean it's the wrong lot? You idiot." Then Michael, quiet but firm, I hadn't heard that tone since he was 15. "Pack your stuff. We're leaving tonight." She screamed. Something crashed, sounded like the vase I bought on our anniversary trip to Savannah. Then her heels on the stairs, fast. She burst out the front door, saw me standing there calm, and stopped dead. "This isn't over, old woman," she spat. I looked her straight in the eyes. "Yes, baby, it is." She tried to push past me. I didn't move. She had to go around. Her shoulder bumped the geranium pot and it tipped, dirt spilling across my welcome mat like dried blood. Michael came out carrying 2 duffel bags. He didn't look at her. He looked at me. "Mama, can I call you tomorrow?" I touched his cheek, the one that used to be round and sticky with popsicle juice, and said, "When you're ready to be my son again, you know where I am." He nodded, tears dripping off his chin, and walked to his truck. Crystal followed, still yelling, but the fight had gone out of her voice. It sounded small against the night. They drove off. Taillights disappeared around the corner. I stood there a long time. The air smelled like spilled dirt and night-blooming jasmine. My cheek hurt something fierce, but my heart felt lighter than it had in years. I went inside. Locked the door with my old key that still worked just fine, and started cleaning up the broken vase. piece by piece, the way you do. The next morning, I called the locksmith myself and had every cylinder changed again. Then I made coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and opened my Bible to Psalm 37. Fret not thyself because of evildoers. Trust in the Lord and do good, so shalt thou dwell in the land. I underlined it twice. Mr. Clarence called that afternoon and told me Crystal had already tried to file a restraining order against me, said I was harassing her. He laughed so hard he started coughing. Joyce, he wheezed, we're gonna have fun with this one. And for the first time since the slap, I smiled. A real one. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not the air, though the air was cold, but the feeling. Like the walls themselves had seen too many broken families and didn't bother warming up for one more. I wore my navy suit, the one I save for funerals and weddings. Pressed it myself the night before. Stockings with no runs, low heels polished till I could see my face in them. Miss Lorraine sat beside me holding my purse like we were waiting on the doctor instead of a judge. Crystal and Michael sat on the other side of the aisle. She had on big sunglasses even though we were indoors, and a tight red dress that looked borrowed from somebody half her age. Michael looked like he hadn't slept in a week. His tie was crooked. I wanted to reach over and fix it, then remembered I wasn't supposed to want that anymore. Mr. Clarence stood when the judge came in. He's tall, even at 80, and his voice still carries like Sunday morning. Your Honor, this is a simple case of elder abuse, assault, and attempted real property fraud. My client, Mrs. Joyce Williams, age 68, widow, sole owner of the home at 414 Magnolia Lane, was physically assaulted in her own kitchen by her daughter-in-law, Mrs. Crystal Williams, who then attempted to dispossess her using a fraudulent quitclaim deed. Crystal's lawyer, their lawyer jumped up, all slick hair and loud tie. Your Honor, this is a family dispute over a generous gift. My clients merely wanted Mrs. Williams to enjoy her golden years without the burden of homeownership. Mr. Clarence slid a photograph across the table. The officer had taken it the morning after the slap. My cheek purple and yellow, lip split, eye half swollen shut. Does this look like Mrs. Williams was relieved of any burden, counselor? The judge, a woman with gray streaks and kind eyes, looked at the picture a long time. Then she looked at Crystal. Mrs. Williams, remove the sunglasses, please. Crystal hesitated, then took them off. The bruise on her own cheek, where Michael said she'd walked into a door the night they argued, was faint now, but the judge saw it. Everybody saw it. The hearing lasted 43 minutes. Mr. Clarence laid out the police report, property records, bank statements showing Crystal had tried to open new credit cards in my name the same week. Crystal's lawyer tried to paint me as a controlling mother-in-law who refused to let the young couple spread their wings. He even brought up the Sunday dinners I cooked like it was evidence of smothering. Mr. Clarence just smiled that old country lawyer smile and asked Crystal, real polite, Ma'am, on the evening of September 12th, did you or did you not strike Mrs. Joyce Williams across the face and demand her house keys? She looked at Michael. Michael looked at the floor. I was under a lot of stress, she said. The judge didn't blink. Answer the question. Yes, Your Honor, but... No buts. The court finds sufficient evidence for a permanent protective order against Crystal Williams. Mrs. Joyce Williams retains sole title and possession of 414 Magnolia Lane. The fraudulent quitclaim deed is declared null and void. Mrs. Williams is awarded court costs and reasonable attorney fees. Case closed. The gavel came down soft, like a period at the end of a long, sad sentence. Crystal started crying loud, dramatic tears. Michael put his arm around her, but she shrugged it off and stormed out. He stayed behind. When the courtroom emptied, he walked over slow. Mr. Clarence stepped back to give us space. Mama, he said, voice hoarse, I'm filing for divorce. I looked at him a long time. He had his daddy's eyes, tired and sorry. You sure? I asked. I let her turn me into somebody I don't even recognize, he said. I need to find my way back. I nodded once. Then start by coming to church with me Sunday. 10:30 service. We'll sit in our old pew. After that, you can help me plant new geraniums where the dirt spilled, one step at a time." He cried then, quiet, shoulders shaking. I opened my arms, and he folded into them like he was 10 years old again. I smelled the same little boy smell under the grown man cologne, and something in my chest unclenched. Outside the courthouse, Miss Lorraine snapped a picture of me and Michael on the front steps. Sun was shining. My cheek was still yellow in places, but I was smiling. I posted that picture on Facebook myself, that night with the caption, "God don't always move fast, but he don't miss." Got 487 likes, and one message from Crystal that just said, "This isn't over." I blocked her and slept better than I had in years. The weeks after the courthouse settled into a rhythm I hadn't known in years. Quiet mornings, my own coffee, no footsteps overhead at 6:30 wondering where their breakfast was. I left the master bedroom empty for a while. Couldn't bring myself to sleep in it yet. Instead, I stayed in my old sewing room with the single bed and the window that faces the pecan tree. Some nights I'd wake up reaching for my husband's side of the bed, forget he was gone, then remember everything else that had happened and lie there listening to the house breathe on its own. Michael came every Sunday. He'd pull up at 9:45, still in his good shirt and tie, carrying a box of Krispy Kreme like he did when he was 16 and late for curfew. We'd sit in the kitchen and eat donuts off paper towels and talk, really talk, for the first time since he was a boy. He told me how Crystal had started love-bombing him right after college. Gifts, big promises, telling him his mama was holding him back. How she kept track of every dollar I ever gave them and used it like ammunition. How he woke up one morning and realized he didn't know who he was without her screaming in his ear. "I was scared to be broke again," he said one Sunday, voice low. "Scared to disappoint her, scared to disappoint you, so I just disappeared inside myself." I listened. I didn't fix it. I just handed him another donut and let him talk until the hole in him stopped echoing. He moved into the basement apartment, finished it out himself on weekends, put in a little kitchenette, painted the walls the same soft blue his daddy and I picked for his nursery. He paid rent. Real rent. $200 a month he slid across the table in an envelope like he was ashamed it wasn't more. I put every envelope in a coffee can on top of the fridge. Planned to give it back to him one day when he wasn't looking. We started small traditions again. Friday nights we watched old westerns and argued over whether John Wayne could really ride. Wednesday mornings, he mowed the lawn before work. I made biscuits and left 2 on a plate by his door. Some evenings I'd find him sitting on the back steps staring at nothing, and I'd just sit beside him until the mosquitoes chased us in. One Saturday in early spring, he came upstairs carrying a flat of red geraniums. "Thought we could finish what we started," he said. We knelt side by side in the dirt where Crystal had knocked the pot over. My knees complained, but I didn't care. We planted everyone, pressed the soil gentle around the roots like we were tucking bobbies into bed. When we were done, he brushed the dirt off his hands and asked, real quiet, "Mama, do you think people can change? For real?" I looked at the flowers, bright against the dark earth, and thought about how they'd been half dead in the nursery tray and now had a whole summer ahead of them. "I think people can choose different," I said. "Every single day, that's what grace is for." He nodded like he was storing that away somewhere safe. Miss Lorraine started coming over on Tuesdays. We'd bake pound cake and gossip about everybody at church. One day she brought me a little wooden sign from the craft store, "Home's Sweet Home." We hung it right over the front door where the old one used to be. Summer came. The house filled up with light again. I opened windows I'd kept shut for years. I bought new curtains, yellow, bright as sunshine, and hung them myself while Michael held the ladder and fussed that I was too old to be climbing. I never heard from Crystal again. Rumor was she moved to Atlanta with some new man who bought her a Camaro. I hope she finds whatever she's chasing. I truly do, but I don't lose sleep over it anymore. Some Sundays after church, the ladies ask me, gentle-like, "Miss Joyce, you ever think about selling this big house? Moving somewhere smaller?" I just smile and say, "This is where my memories live. I'm not done making new ones yet. And that's the truth. I still walk past the empty master bedroom sometimes and feel my husband's hand on my shoulder. I still flinch a little when a door slams too hard, but the flinch gets smaller every month. I learned something through all of this, something I wish I'd known sooner. Love doesn't mean you lay yourself down for folks to walk over. Love means you stand up straight so the people who really belong can walk beside you. Michael and I are learning how to do that now. Slow, steady, one sundae, one donut, one geranium at a time. And on quiet evenings when the light turns gold through the kitchen window, I sit at my table with my coffee, and I feel something I haven't felt in a long, long while. Peace. Real peace. The kind that doesn't need permission from anybody else. Would you like me to write the closing audience reflection?